Hi students, it's Mrs. Smith. I'm here. I thought I'd have the ants in front of me so you could watch them a little bit. Hoping you can see them. I did feed them last night, so there's a little piece of red pepper in there. I'm going to read to you from the Handbook of Nature Study by Anna Botsford Comstock. And I'm very excited for you to learn a little bit about the inside of the nest. I want you to remember that the ant, I'm going to show you a picture of an ant. And you can see it has antennas, head, eyes. It does have mandibles to cut, and then legs. This, where the legs are attached, is called the thorax. And here is the abdomen. And you can see it has the six, or she has the 6 legs. What's interesting is their antennas are divided into segments. And each of the segments has a special job. And we're going to be talking about how they use their segments to smell. And each segment smells something different. Without it, they won't know how to operate as an ant. They keep very good care of these antennas also. On the end of their feet, they have like a little comb brush that they constantly are cleaning their special antennas with. So let's read about the ants a little bit. I'm recording in my kitchen, and my husband is out trying to fish. So I'm hoping I get this done before he gets home. The ant nest and what may be seen within it. Ant anatomy becomes a very interesting study when we note the vigorous way the ant uses it, even to the least part. The slender waist characterizes the ant as well as the wasp. So the ants have that tiny little waist that connects their thorax to their abdomen, and not all insects have that. The bee, the wasp, and the ant have it. Now that connecting part of the 3 regions of the body can easily be seen. We can see the head with its ever-moving antenna, the slender thorax with its 3 pairs of most efficient legs, and the long abdomen. The ant's legs are fairly long as compared with the size of the body, and the ant can run with a rapidity that comparatively would outdistance any marathon runner. However, however famed the runner is. Yeah. I timed an ant one day when she was taking a constitutional on my foot rule. She was in no hurry, and yet she made time that is translated into human terms would mean 16 yards per second. In addition to running, many ants, when frightened, will make leaps with incredible swiftness. And I believe when we were measuring our footsteps, we tried to figure out how many footsteps would be in 10 yards. And this ant, if you compared her to us, would be able to do 16 of those yards in 1 second. And it took us quite a lot longer to do our footsteps in 1 second. Oh my goodness, we would never do it. The ant does not show her cleverness in her physiognomy, probably because her eyes seem small and dull, and she has a decidedly retreating forehead. But the brain behind this unpromising appearance is far more active and efficient than that behind the gorgeous great eyes of the dragonfly, or behind the high brow of the grasshopper. The ant's jaws are very large compared with her head. They work sideways like a pair of shears and are armed with triangular teeth along the biting edges. These are not teeth in a vertebrate sense, but are like the teeth of a saw. These jaws are the ant's chief utensils and weapons. With them, she seizes the burdens of food which she carries home. With them, she gently lifts her infant charges, and with them, she crushes and breaks up hard food. With them, she carries out soil from her tunnel, and with them, she fights her enemies. She also has a pair of long palpi or feelers. Although her eyes are so small and furnished with coarse facets as compared with other insects, this fact need not count against her, for she has little need of eyes. Her home life is passed in dark burrows, where her antennae give her information of her surroundings. Note how these antennae are always moving, seeming to be a tremble in eagerness to receive sensations. But aside from their powers of telling things by the touch, wherein they are more delicate than the fingers of the blind, they have other sense organs which are comparable to our sense of smell. Miss Field has shown that each of the 5 end segments of the antenna has its own powers in detecting odor. The end segment detects the odor of the ant's own nest and enables her to distinguish this from other nests. I guess she wouldn't want to walk into the wrong nest. The next, or the 11th segment, detects the odor of any descendant of the same queen. By this, she recognizes her sisters, wherever she finds them. So she can tell one sister, her sister ant, from another colony. Through the next, or 10th segment, she recognizes the odor of her own feet. So she can smell her own footsteps. I'm sure you've seen ants following each other in a line if you've ever gotten them in your home. And they kind of follow the same path. And thus she can retrace her own steps. Now, I wasn't sure if she was, like, when I see ants moving in a line in the kitchen, I wasn't sure if they were following another ant's footsteps or their own. And here it seems like she's following her own. The 8th and 9th segments convey to her the intelligence and means of caring for the young. If an ant is deprived of these 5 end joints of the antenna, she loses all power as a social ant and becomes completely disenfranchised. She can't find her nest, she can't find her sisters, she doesn't know how to care for young. She can't find her own path, how she got to where she was. She'd be in a pickle. Miss Field gives her most interesting experiments in detail in the proceedings of the Academy of Natural Sciences of Philadelphia in the July and October 1901. It is natural enough that the ant, depending so much on her antenna for impressions and stimuli, should be very particular to keep them clean and in good order. She is well equipped to do this, for she has a most efficient antenna brush on her wrist. It is practically a circular comb, which just fits over the antenna, and to see the ants using these brushes is one of the most common sights in the ant nest, and one of the most amusing. Let me see if I can show you this picture that has been sketched of the end of her foot. Let me see if I get it down a little bit for you. Ooh, I have to really go down for that. Do it sideways. Okay, that's the end of her foot. Here's a whole part of her leg, and right at the very end is where this little brush comb is that cleans her antennas so well. God is amazing. He's into the details, isn't he? Okay, let me push that a little closer for you. Now, let's see, we're at her cleaning herself. The ant usually commences by lifting her leg over one antenna and deftly passing it through the brush, and then licks the brush clean by passing it through her mouth, as a cat washes her face. Then she cleans the other in a similar manner and possibly finishes by doing both alternately, winding up with a flourish, like a European gentleman curling his mustache. Her antenna clean, she starts promptly to do something, for she is a little 6-footed Martha, always weighed down or buoyed up by many duties and cares. Aww. And when they talk about Martha, I would like you to think about what Martha they're talking about, who like to be busy in the kitchen and help entertain. Could it possibly be the Martha from Martha and Mary in the story about Jesus? She keeps her antenna on the QV. She assures herself by touch of the nature of any obstacle in her path. If she meets another ant, their antennae cross and pat each other. And thus they learn whether they are sisters or aliens. If they are sisters, they may stand for some time with their antennae fluttering. One who has watched ants carefully is compelled to believe that they thus communicate intelligence of some sort, one to the other. The ant is a good sister, according to her lights. If her sister is hungry, she will give to her, even from her own partially digested food. The two will often stand mouth to mouth for some minutes during this process. If she feels inclined, she will also help a sister at her toilet. Now, when we talk about the ant's toilet, we're not talking about a sister ant helping the other ant go to the bathroom. What else do we do when we're in our bathrooms besides eliminate? Yeah, you comb your hair, you wash your face, right? You groom yourself. All right, so when we talk about an ant's toilet, we're talking about the grooming part. All right, so one sister ant's going to help another sister with her toilet and lick her with her tongue as one cow licks another. The tongue of the ant is very useful in several ways. With it, she takes up liquids and also uses it with much vigor as a washcloth. I never really thought about an ant having a tongue. Did you? Huh? God gave her one. And also uses it with much vigor as a washcloth. Sometimes an ant will spend a half hour or more at her own toilet, licking every part of her own body that her tongue can reach, meanwhile going through all sorts of contortions to accomplish it. She uses her feet to scrub portions of her body not to be reached by her tongue. But it is an infant nurse that the ant is a shining example. No mother instinct is hers, as she has yielded the power of motherhood to the exigencies of business life, since all workers are females, but are undeveloped sexually. So she will not have eggs. All the workers cannot have eggs. Only who has the eggs? If you answered queen, that's right. She shows far more sense in the care of her infant sisters than the mother instinct often supplied to human mothers. The ant nurse takes the eggs as soon as laid, and whether her care retards or hastens hatching, we know not. But we do know that although the queen ant may not lay more than 2 eggs a day. I thought they'd lay more than that, but they only lay 2 a day. A goodly number of these seem to hatch at the same time. The eggs are massed in bundles and are sticky on the outside, so they are held together in a bundle, a little bundle of eggs. Miss Field says that as the eggs are hatching, one ant will hold up the bundle, while another feeds those which have broken the shell. So they're all stuck together, and they're starting to hatch. And they rotate the bundle so that some can be fed and some can be assisted in breaking through the shell or the coating of the egg. The larvae that are coming out of these eggs, when young, also hang together by means of tiny hooks on their bodies. This habit of the eggs and the young larva is a convenient one, since an ant is thus able to carry many at a time. They keep these little groups together. The larvae are odd-looking little creatures, shaped like little crook-neck squashes, the small end being the head and neck, and the latter, the bigger end, being very extensible. The ant nurses, by feeding some more than others, are able to keep a brood at the same stage of development and in a well-ordered ant nest. We find that those of the same size are in one nursery. I have often thought of a graded school, as I have noted in ant nests, the youngsters are sorted according to size. Interesting. The ants seem to realize the cost and care of rearing their young. And I'm going to stop there because we're at about 16 minutes of reading, and we'll continue to learn about how those wonderful nurse ants take care of the young next time. I am going to read a Bible scripture. Some of you do know this. I have heard you reciting it. I think it was last year, maybe in Mrs. Folk's class. It's from Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 to 8. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. Those busy ants are even mentioned in the Bible. God bless you for today. Bye.